between the EU and Thailand have been suspended for quite some time, or almost 10 years now. However, this year, 2023, we have seen more positive developments from both sides, and it's likely that the FTA between two sides will be resumed soon. Today, I am at the Department of Trade Negotiations. We will update more on this situation with Kun Auramon Supthaweethum, the Director General of the department. Thailand and EU have both suspended its FTA for quite some time, almost 10 years ago. But now, in 2023, looking positively, both sides have talked and likely to resume its FTA. So the FTA plan was given the green light by the cabinet. What is the next step and the process, and what is the situation right now?
Okay, so since the Thai cabinet has already given the green light for us to launch the FTA with the EU, right now we have already informed the EU that Thailand got green light. We are now waiting for the response from the EU. However, the two parties has already set up tentative timeline. Since last month, on the 25th of January, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Commerce of Thailand, Kun Julin Laksanavisit, had visited the EU Vice President, Mr. Dombrovskis, and they have talked and agreed that both sides will proceed with internal procedures in order to be able to launch the FTA between Thailand and EU. They have set the timeline to be around the first quarter of this year. So we are now waiting for the response from the EU side. If the two parties agree and ready, then I think the official announcement on the launch of the FTA will be done.
Do you know about the EU side? What are the developments from their side so far?
They mentioned that they also need to consult with the member of the EU. So it means that the Commission has to consult with 27 member states. And the timeline, we are planning to be able to launch it as soon as possible by the first quarter of this year.
So by the first quarter of this year, it's going to be finalized. But when is it going to be implemented?
So it means that after the two sides, perhaps if they are ready to announce the launch of the FTA, then the official will start planning for the talk or for the negotiations. We have to lay down, the work plan regarding the meetings. And normally, FTA negotiations would take around 1 or 2 years to conclude. It also depends on the scope and the detail of the issues under negotiations. But I expect that if the negotiations start, we should be able to conclude it around 2 years.
Within 2 years?
Within 2 years.
That both sides can benefit each other. What about now? What is the current situations of the Thai and EU FTA?
You mean the trade between Thailand and EU?
Yes, the trade situation between Thailand and EU right now.
Actually, the EU ranked around the 4th of the trading partner of Thailand. The trade between Thailand and EU last year constitute around 40 billion US dollar. We are able to get a trade benefit, trade balance between Thailand and EU. The ratio of the trade between Thailand and EU constitute around 7% of the Thailand trade to the world. We export many of the products, for example, computer and parts, automobiles and parts, rubber products, foods, processed fruits to the EU. At the same time, we also import the products such as scientific materials, machineries and parts, pharmaceutical products and chemical products.
If everything goes okay, what are the advantages that will result from the Thai and EU FTAs?
Okay. The free trade agreement or the FTA will allow the countries of the FTA to eliminate and reduce trade barriers among each other, especially the tariffs imposed at the border. So we see that as we export many products to the EU, we foresee that we will have a comparative advantage at the EU market, because if we conclude the FTA, we will be able to export Thai products to the EU without tariffs or very low tariffs. This will help our exporters have a competitive advantage compared with the other competitors or trading partners. At the same time, we see that perhaps foreign direct investment from the EU state may be interested to invest more in Thailand, because if they invest more and they set up factory and manufacture products in Thailand, they will also be able to get advantage from the FTA and perhaps export to the EU market with very low or without tariffs.
So seeing that Thailand and EU right now is likely to come to this agreement soon, but let's say we have a lot of events going on around the world and also internal business in Thailand as well. Let's say from the international stage we have the ongoing war in Europe, and also in Thailand we will have Thai elections soon. Would these factors impact the Thai and EU FTAs?
I don't think so. I believe that we have got a lot of support internally, both from the private sector as well as various stakeholders. They would like to see Thailand get into negotiations on the FTA with the EU. They want to see the launch of Thailand FTA with the EU. So I think that we will get support from the Thai stakeholder. At the same time, I would like to think of it as an opportunity, turn the crisis, turn a challenge into the opportunity.
Yes.
Because I think this is a very good opportunity. Even though Thailand will soon have an election, but we already got a green light from the cabinet. So that means we can pursue the green light that we got and start negotiations with the EU. At the same time, when I say that turn the challenges and the crisis into opportunity, I think both parties perhaps have the same idea that because of the crisis, so we need to enhance our cooperation. We need to get into trade negotiations, so that the outcome of the negotiations will help us strengthen more cooperations, as well as reduce and eliminate any trade barriers that we might have. At the same time, it's not only the issue of market access, but there are also issues like rules and regulation, a standard that we can perhaps try to understand each other more, and perhaps upgrade, for example, Thailand rules and regulation up to international standard. This will provide benefit to our traders and also welcome foreign direct investment into Thailand.
But as many people perceive that every time when we change government, policies will change, how can Thailand reassure the EU that how can Thailand reassure and attract investors and also the EU side that even if we change the government, whatever that we discuss, we can reassure you that everything will run accordingly to the plans?
I think because the EU is a very important trading partner with Thailand, we have seen the debate in the parliament. Both sides, either government parties or opposition parties, have mentioned that they want to see the resumption of Thailand and EU FTA. They also discuss about why there may be some countries that already engage and conclude FTA with the EU, like our neighboring countries. So they want to see Thailand also resume the negotiations of the FTA with the EU. So I think both parties have already mentioned in the parliament. So I don't think there will be any opposition on this specific issue.
So that's looking very positively from both sides, that both sides will benefit each other. But how Thailand will profit from all the FTA's agreements?
Oh, you have asked interesting questions. Right now we have 14 FTA with 18 trading partners. The total of trade between Thailand and these 18 trading partners constitute around 60% of Thailand trade to the world. And it means that there are still around 40% that we trade without FTA. This means if we trade under the FTA, we will have more comparative advantage. We will benefit from the elimination and reduction of trade barriers with our trading partners. So during the past, we have seen the growth of the volume of trade around 270% during the past 4 or 5 years between Thailand and countries that we have already have FTA. Comparing with the trade growth between Thailand and countries without FTA, the growth is around 170%. So you see the big gap. So we want to encourage, and we want to perhaps increase the number of countries that we haven't yet have an FTA with. That's why we believe that resumption of FTA with European Union is very important. At the same time, we also plan to extend more FTA with other trading partners. For example, countries in the Middle East like UAE, the Gulf state countries, as well as countries in the South America. Yeah. So there are a number of countries that, including Africa country. So we want to increase number of FTA that Thailand have.
So what you have mentioned to me earlier was the outlook plan of this year.
Actually, as I mentioned, we already have the ratio between trade between Thailand and countries that we have FTA with. The 18 countries constitute around 60% of Thailand total trade. We want to increase that to 80% within 5 years, within the next 5 years. So our plan, medium-term plan for the next 5 years is to perhaps engage and try to conclude negotiations that we already have on the table. This means that we already have FTA negotiations with Turkey, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and EFTA countries. So we want to try to conclude these FTA negotiations as early as possible, perhaps by next year. And for the countries that we haven't yet have the FTA, we want to launch the negotiations like with the EU that we plan to launch with them very soon. We also want to launch the new FTA with the Gulf Cooperation Council, the Middle East countries, which include UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman, for example.
I understand that in order to have a talk and discussions in terms of FTA, there's a lot of process, there's a lot of agreements. I would like to ask, what is the most difficult part for the negotiations between Thailand and other sides of the world in order to have FTAs that would benefit for Thai people?
I think the most difficult part is try to start the first step. So we have to engage with our trading partner try to talk with them to see we have the same kind of expectation. If we
Vision.
see the benefit of having FTA, then we might be able to start the first step, start the negotiations, then try to conclude it within 1 or 2 years, not too long. Then both sides can get a benefit from FTA. The other part that I think that is also very difficult is that once we conclude the FTA, we want the private sector to utilize it. We want them to get the benefit from the outcome of the negotiations, because it's very difficult from start the negotiations, from trying to conclude the agreement. Then why not? That's why my department also have another responsibility, trying to disseminate information of the outcome of the FTA to the private sector. At the same time, encourage them to utilize the FTA that we already conclude.
And also give them information as much as
right.
possible that they can benefit these services. For today, thank you very much ค่ะคุณ Auramon ขอบคุณมากค่ะ And that's all for Voice of the Nation. Stay tuned with us every Friday from 8 to 8:30 p.m. I am Nina Nirashamalisakhlami ขอบคุณค่ะ สวัสดีค่ะ